We are ready to record, everybody. Another CIRF report, October 6th through the 12th. This one's called The Inner Warrior Rises. And today we're going to be talking about the astrology, among other things. And although in this CIRF week, October 6th through the 12th, there is not going to be an eclipse, but there will be a full moon. But I am going to give you a bonus chart. We're going to talk about the upcoming partial solar eclipse. It's time to surf, everybody. And a shout out to Bluebird. I turned up the volume. Does this help? Now, the only risk is that I might saturate my voice. So everybody sound check. Thanks for all the comments. This is helping. And I know it might be annoying to some of you, but it really does help. And we'll find and finesse the right volume, find and finesse the right, I don't know what you call this, the spotlight thing. I'm excited about this. I'm going to show you here in a second. All right. So here's our summary slide. And if you're new here, we do the triangulation for the influence. We do a triangulation at the end for the solution or the behaviors that are recommended for this week. Starting with the influence, we have the I-Ching says difficulty at the beginning. Well, what does that match? That's a direct match to the Aries, which is the beginning of the zodiac, Aries full moon. So difficulty at the beginning. Difficulty meaning probably heated, conflict. That's a perfect match to the T-square and all this chaotic energy that you're going to see in the astrology. There's a lot of it. Aries full moon implies the warrior within rises, but in a crazy, unexpected way, because full moons are sort of unpredictable. It's just crazy energy. Not so much unpredictable energy, but unpredictable how people are going to react to it. That's the unpredictable part of full moons. And then you have Uranus over North Node. We have the T-square on Mars. Everything here points to the warrior within. And I bring this up because it's very well overlapped with the main things in the astrology, except for the grand Air Trine. That's indicated in the Dreambot. We'll talk about that next. Grand Air Trine. Remember, we had the grand Air Trine for a couple weeks. Now it's the grand Air Trine. We have the full moon in Aries, the T-square on Mars. Mercury is direct in returning into Libra, opposed Neptune and Jupiter. There's a lot here and much, much more. And then the Dreambot, which is the collective unconscious. We do this via the Dreambot that goes around and picks up dreams. We'll talk about this, but it's looking like very mental space, but a divergent and creative mind. It's a very specific type of mindset, plus a little bit of time. And in astrology, the time, the clock is Saturn. That's part of the grand Air Trine. So that's an overlap there. And we have more Mercury, which is the mind, but the creative mind, because of Mercury opposed Neptune. Whew. All right, pause. Talking too fast, at least for me. I know I talk slow, so. All right, that's the overview. Arg. The warrior within rises, and part of that, only part of it, is the Aries full moon. All right, let's get started. I thank you for commenting on the filter. I want to show you. I can't read all the comments. There's so many good comments. Thank you, everybody. So for those of you who commented on the filter, how do you like it now? I just dimmed the dark side down, right? And so thank you for the comments. And hopefully we had opinions on both sides. So I want to find the happy medium. Shout out to YouTube 1984. They were first. So appreciate you. And Bluebird, this is the reason why my voice is a little bit louder. Make sure it's not too loud and saturating. We want to find that happy medium there too. Robert, shout out to you. Thank you so much, my brother. The pressure is intense, and I'm doing my best to navigate it all with ease and grace, sending lots of love to everybody as we take it all to the next level. You, my friend, Robert, you have read correctly this next CIRF report. And this is going to be the solution. We're taking the inner warrior that is rising in all of us and hopefully apply it towards bringing all of us to the next level of human existence. Shout out to Feya. Welcome. Only been watching for a few weeks. I'm happy to find a true astrologer, direct, simple, profound, real-time advice. Thank you. And the candles are the fire on both sides. Feya, shout out. You also correctly found the energies for this next coming week. It's amazing what we all have. We all have this intuitive ability to see what's coming energetically. Now, if we just hone our skills, we can react differently instead of just all subconsciously and how we're programmed. Awareness gives you choices. All right, enough of that psychology stuff. Not for me to say wins this week's Best Comment Award. Whoa, mind blown. Glad to see it through. Mind blown. Glad to see it though. Thank you. With 4 ups. Now, so shout out to you, not for me to say congratulations. Now, comment to Rumble. Just curious. I'm wondering if there's a algorithm over there, because suddenly the viewership, not that we had this extraordinary viewership over on Rumble, but it collapsed. It's like 50% of where it normally is. I'm not really sure why. What's happening over there, Rumble? Are you guys not getting notified of in your feed, or maybe there's just saturated with so many channels now? I don't know. Interesting to see there. I'm not complaining, just wondering. All right, let's get into the Dreambot. Remember that divergent and creative mind? Well, it's seeing off in the distance. Mind is the builder. We've talked about this many times. That's according to Edgar Cayce. And these words are view and dream, and it's very imaginative. It sort of rings a tone between Mercury and Neptune. It just so happens Mercury and Neptune in an opposition. And so this is the result, in my opinion. It's a divergent and creative mind. And so we can think creatively. And even if you don't want to be creative, if you're imagining and you're emoting, you are creating your future. So make sure that you choose that which you want to create, right? All right. And then time is in here in the blue arrows. It's era, yesterday, days. It's not a big, heavy meme, but it's there. And then I have a linguistic set, number 1, called Monsters Planned Basement, particularly Spiral. Not really. I feel like there's something there. Does anybody have any ideas? I don't know. Maybe not. All right. Now let's get into the astrology. And this is where I put the filter on. See? It's just a very hint of darkness, but you should be able to see it clearly. Anyway, you like this? This is better? All right. Pluto this week ends its retrograde. As we can see, Mercury is direct, and we'll switch into Libra this week, this CIRF week. And then towards the end, we have what's a really interesting alignment happening with the bringer of the light. That is Venus, and Venus is holding hands with the sun. And later on in a week, so later on in the month, not this week, but later on, this is closer to the partial solar eclipse, as you're going to have Venus and Sun just going into Scorpio, right, together, holding hands in a tight conjunction, and then entering into a new moon, which makes, and because the sun and moon are in the same parallel, same vertical space in the horizon relative to Earth, that makes it an eclipse. And so I'm going to show you that chart today at the end, not the end of the show, but at the end of the astrology section. And we're going to talk about that. You're going to have a Venus conjunct the new moon. It's going to be in Scorpio, amazing, powerful. Oh my God, powerful eclipse. All right, so that's the overview. Let's get started on our day-to-day discussion. We have this is the last day of the Grand Earth Trine with Mercury direct. This is the overview on Thursday the 6th. We have that T-square still on Mars. And I'm going to consciously try to hold the cursor more steady because I know I'm like all over the place. My Gemini influence sort of makes me look ADHD, although I don't feel like I am. We have the T-square, which makes this pressurized. Mars is one of the warrior archetypes this week. We're going to talk about several more, but Mars is in Gemini. So lots of little tasks, lots of taking on things, very adaptable, last minute changes, all these kinds of things, scurrying around, but doing, and this pressure to do and get done. And scurry everywhere we go. Overwhelmed with that. Everybody in my caseload and counseling is overwhelmed. It's amazing. And this is the alignment. It's overwhelming when you've got two pressure points from Neptune up to Mars and Mercury. Mercury's part of this pressure cooker. By the way, what we're going to talk about as well as Mercury goes direct, it's going to speedily go into Libra and then make an almost perfect opposition with Jupiter, but it's technically going to be next CIRF week. But that's going to be much more expansive, excessive possibility in here. So whatever we're feeling with this pressure to do, as I've been feeling anyway, is going to get even more like over optimistic and more pressurized, but in more of you don't know that it's optimistic to do more stuff, but you just notice yourself doing more optimistic about what you can get done, signing up for more. All right. And then the big news is this is the last day of the Grand Earth Trine, which was Uranus North Node, Pluto, the destroyer, the rebuilder, and then Mercury changing directions and heading direct now. And then this will initiate tomorrow on Friday, the Grand Air Trine. So it's a big energetic shift. In the easy portions, this was the Grand Earth Trine was very earthy, but discombobulating because our reality was changing, was morphing. The destroyer was acting, the Uranus was giving you insights, but also massive quick change in the material world, which is sort of ironic, paradoxical, because Uranus hates being in Taurus because it's bullheaded and they're fighting against each other. This alignment makes another, rebel. Uranus is more of the rebel, especially in headstrong and bullheaded Taurus. And makes for another warrior archetype. All right, Thursday, enter the Grand Air Trine. And because one of those points is the sun conjunct with the ruler of Libra, which is Venus, together 4 degrees away, this is going to be a factor all the way and past the solar eclipse on the 25th. These two planets, sun and I know sun's not a planet, but in astrology, we consider it a planet, just to make it easy. And these two planets move at roughly the same speed relative to the Earth. So it's just slowly getting tighter and tighter. And in a couple of weeks, you're going to see these perfectly conjunct. And they're going to be in the same parallel right at the time of the eclipse. So I don't know yet if that partial, I don't know yet if on the eclipse, you're going to be able to see Venus, but Venus will be right there because it's a partial eclipse that the sun's still so bright coming out of that little corner that you may not be able to see Venus, but she is right there on the eclipse and new moon. But I do know that North America, South America, Western Europe will not be able to see this and see Venus because you're not going to be able to get any occlusion. It's the folks in the sort of the Eastern Europe and Western Russia, Western China, that whole section there are the ones who are going to benefit by this partial solar eclipse. So for you, if you're over in that area, you may be able to see Venus at the time. I don't know why I'm talking about all this. There I go again. We have a grand Air Trine. So Saturn is there, Sun in Libra. So justice is served, folks, because Saturn is the judgment, is the kibosh, it's the limitation, it's the way it is, and maybe even government. So justice is here, especially with Venus's help. This trine makes it easy for justice to be served. Kaboom. And then over here, Sun and Mars makes for very powerful communication. That's the Gemini influence. So Mars wants to obey or see the lens of your action through the Gemini lens, which is much more communicative, more talking, but it's powerful. That's the Mars, which, by the way, is heightened in the T-square. So the pressure is there, but the powerful nature of Mars makes it for powerful communication, but communication towards justice, towards Libra things. So justice, equality, fairness, balance, even beauty, outward appearance, right? And then we've got Saturn and Mars. It's a grand Air Trine. So overall, it's very much more mental. It's logical. It's also adaptable especially in a social context. So all that is very easy. And for those of you who have that social anxiety, it doesn't mean you're no longer have that. It means you can handle that and still be more, maybe more social. I'll just make it easy. Then we also have an inconjunct. It's hidden in all this hay, right? It's the needle in the haystack, but it's Pluto, inner power, Mars, outer power in a pressurized format, and they're adapting to each other. So it's an inconjunct, which means adjustments. And now we've got power struggles and a chess playing. It's a chess playing power struggle. The outer and the inner power. You've got the subconscious, which is Pluto, in a Capricorn in a goal-oriented environment, going retrograde, but Pluto will switch that here this week. Oh, there's so much. And I haven't even touched on the other inconjuncts because I don't want to. These are the big things. These are broad brush strokes here in our astrology. Saturday, the 8th, we've got the grand Air Trine, and you can see the inevitable as Venus continues to make her way towards the Sun and further into Libra. You're going to have a second grand Air Trine, all with the same players, but now just Sun and Venus. I'd like to note here the growing oppositions, especially because the moon is here, going into Aries, preparing for this full moon. We got Mercury, the lower mind, and Jupiter, the higher mind. It's not a real tight conjunction or opposition right now, but it is going to be balancing. Can be very challenging, especially in a T-square environment, but having to balance out both sides of that equation, the mental aptitude, the expansiveness, the closeness. So Mercury is part of the rational box. It's what you know to be true. And so hence it is non-expansive. It's constrictive. It's making decisions according to only what you know and learned. But Jupiter is expansive. Its option is to show you things that have never been shown before. So much more attuned to a little bit more intuitive mind, wise mind. Yeah, it's about the learning that you had in the past, but it's what the unending possibilities into the future that Jupiter bring in a positive environment. And then we have the full moon, and this is at 3:54 p.m. and it's Sunday the 9th, and this is Central Time, Central Daylight Savings Time. When that switches, I got to switch your clock back. Asinine. But we're not there yet, so let's not fret the future, Chris, okay? Let's just stay in the present moment. We have the sun in Libra shining into a full moon in Aries, and that's 16 degrees, 33 minutes. And it is the start of the zodiac with Aries. It's also the warrior inside, right? It's the I'm breaking out into the world. It can be scary for an Aries, some anxiety there, but it can be impulsive and it can be very confrontative, very warrior-like. I'm going to fight my way to what I think is right. And it's conjunct with Chiron. There's another warrior. Chiron is at 14 degrees. So about 2.5 degrees away from this full moon. So it's a conjunct Chiron. And Chiron's that icy planet that's the wounded warrior and spent so much time in learning, trying to heal himself. Finally figured out that as long as I use this training and knowledge to help others, then I also help myself. So it's not a very Aries archetype, but it's a nice edge that takes off the offensive or defensive, that continuum. It takes that edge off. So it's a softening of this. It gives Aries just a little bit of more empathy and self-sacrificing in order to make this full moon not so, selfish, for a lack of a better word. Now, I don't mean that it's going to turn everybody selfish, but when you go into this full moon, plus or minus 24 hours, pay attention to people's behaviors, and they'll be just a little bit more self-serving. It just will. Now, this Chiron takes that edge off. And it's not an absolute motivator. It's an energy. The full moon is an energy. And what you can't predict is how people are going to react to it. So I would expect to have more of an aggressive nature to it, a little bit more anxiety. And when Aries is anxious or scared is when they get a little bit more aggressive, just like dogs when they've been traumatized. Some of them recede, but others are much more aggressive. So, and we're all going to react a little bit differently to that full moon. This is where, ironically, the destroyer Pluto, the transformative Pluto, is stationed direct, right? And with a trine over to Mercury. This puts a lot of thoughts now into power and control, and it's it's easy. So not that it's going to feel good or feel easy, but when you've got power and control easily going into the psyche, well, how are you going to behave? It's just another one of those warrior archetypes in the astrology this week. So arg, the warrior within comes in, right? Especially now, another take on this is rationally, logically, reasoning. So if I see reasoning is easily being able to see power and control, well, what are you going to do then? Probably fight against it. Another warrior. Excuse me. Monday the 10th. See, now we have the grand Earth trine still. We have 4.5 degrees between Uranus and North Node. So Uranus is chipping away at the future, shifting the course of action. The Taurus nature is very like a locomotive, so it's very difficult to change direction of this speeding bullet or speeding locomotive. But over time, Uranus can put that pressure on and change the course of humanity. And that's what's happening. It takes time because there's this thing called homeostasis. And if it's in the zodiac, it's going to be in Taurus. Homeostasis says every time we change or have to change, there's a force that wants to keep it the same. And that's just Taurus. So it takes time, but it is changing. And it's still relatively strong at 4.5 degrees over the North Node. So the future is changing. And you can look at it another way. Uranus is the rebellious one, the freedom fighter, the independent one. And that is the future. So our course of action, not just in ourselves, but as the collective, is towards Uranus. Yes. Eventually, the age of Aquarius breaks out. Boom, full-blown, individualistic, knowledge-based, higher-level living. Everyone's concerned about the collective, but we're not guilt-tripped by it. Haha. And knowledge, true science. Uranus is science and technology, and that's the future. Right? So, not the future that the powers that be wanted, right? Doesn't sound like it, does it? Let's see what else. Moon still in Aries here. This is Monday the 10th. And then looking into Tuesday, this is where Mercury now has gone into Libra. So now your thoughts, so now it's ego, the way you look and the way you relate to others. And now your mind, your lower mind, your reasoning mind, your knowledge base is all based on equality, justice, balance, beauty, art, creativity's in there as well. But look, we've got two now. We've got the Venus with the grand Air Trine. So justice is served on steroids now. Awesome. And then doing things, Mars, power to do, outward do, Yang, adaptably in Gemini, is easily acting in accordance with the Sun and Venus in Libra, which is much more towards balance, towards justice, and it's easily done. Now, massive change on ego is because Sun and Venus are in conjunct to Uranus in the North Node. So now with the Sun there, it's all in a big old conjunction over the North Node. Lots of future-oriented stamps here, but adapting to each other. This is forcing, the future is forcing the Sun to be more Libra, to be more equal, to be more equality, justice, balance. And the same for how we relate to others. If we bring in the financial archetype with the Venus, is adjusting to change as well. So short-term finance or just bill paying and I don't know, the equal version of the lower mind with Mercury. So lower part of finance with Venus, and that's equally adapting and changing as we head into the future. Technology. Yeah, that sounds about right. You can see it on the wall. I mean, something has to change, right? This is not sustainable. A debt-ridden system, a pyramid scheme will collapse at some point. Wednesday, the 17th, we have Sun square Pluto that is going direct. And that brings a lot of pressure towards ego and power and control. And maybe even a pressure to transform who you are in a context of what's more equal, what's more justice, what's more beautiful, what's more creative, what's more harmonious. All right, and here's our bonus chart. And I shout out to Milos. This is for you because none of us in the Northern Hemisphere are going to be able to see this. This is a partial solar eclipse. I'll put it down here in Scorpio. It's conjunct Venus. And again, just to cage yourself, that's not this week. That's the October 25th partial solar eclipse. It's a new moon in Scorpio, right? Because you have the moon at 2 degrees, 0 minutes, and the sun as well. There's a perfect conjunction. And the sun and the moon are parallel. That's within 17 degrees. So hence an eclipse. And then we have Venus conjunct at 2 degrees, 40 minutes. So that's how I'm wondering, Milos, are you going to be able to see? This is at 5:48 Central Daylight Savings Time in America. So I don't know what that is over in Milos's area, but I'm really interested to see if you'll see Venus. Now, one thing that I was wanting to mention that I didn't is when Venus makes that conjunction with the sun, she is no longer in front of the sun. And so right now in this week, you'll be able to go out into the night sky, into the morning sky before the sun rises, and you'll see the bringer of the light. This is that time of year. So you'll be able to see Venus rising just before the sun and makes her the bringer of the light. In the Bible scholars, alternative, spiritual translators, they equate Venus, because of this bringer of the light, to Lucifer. But also they say, and I don't know what's true or what's not, I'm not a big Bible scholar, but there is nothing in the Bible that connects the bringer of the light or Lucifer with Satan. Two different entities. What do you all think about that? But right now, in the next couple of weeks, this is the time where you can get up early. I'm not sure what time it is, but you can go find out what sunrise is, subtract a half hour, and you'll be able to see Venus, big old bright, other than the moon, the sun, the moon. And then Venus is the third brightest thing in the sky. So it's bringer of the light. So check her out. But by the time the solar eclipse on the 25th, you will no longer see the bringer of the light. Okay? But anyway, that's not the only thing on this partial eclipse, solar eclipse. So we got the big old pressurized square over to Pluto. So Pluto is squared away from its ruling zodiacal sign, and so pressure to be home and conflicted. And so that puts a big emphasis, power and control, puts a big emphasis on this eclipse cycle. So next 6 months. And the other big thing is this trine over to Mars. So Mars is still in Gemini, being able to do stuff. The T-square is gone. So there's not a big focal point there, but it is a powerful thing to consider when we're talking about the new moon eclipse. And this eclipse energy is for the next 6 months after this. So October 25th plus 6 months. This stamp is the guiding zodiac influence. The new moon is also in conjunct with Jupiter at 0 degrees in retrograde to Aries. So we're looking at adaptation with a positive twist and optimism. All right, that's all we got there for the astrology. That was a lot. Now let's get into the I-Ching. Casting 6 coins, and we get 2 changed lines. It's number 3, hexagram 3, difficulty at the beginning. New things seem to be rushing upon you, and confusion can easily take over. However, chaos is a powerful force when you harness it properly. That's the inner warrior that we're talking about. So don't rush things now. Don't let things overwhelm you. And again, every one of my clients' main complaint is overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed with stressors, with emotion. Some people who never cry are crying now. Right? So it's big, big energy, and I know all you are feeling it too. Challenges lie ahead. Shocker there, huh? But they are challenges you can handle. A key challenge at this time is to maintain clarity. Avoid lunging at solutions. That's the kind of the downside to an Aries influence, is that we probably might accidentally go lunging at solutions. We'll talk about that more in the solution slide. Line 2 says, when facing obstacles or difficulties, sometimes there is a sudden turn of events. Interesting. Although you enthusiastically look forward to movement, be aware of strong or wrong solutions that may appeal to you now, ones that could bring restrictive obligations. That's the Mars in Gemini. Don't oversign up for things to do. Line 3 says to continue what you've been doing would bring regret. So it implies that you too are going to be adapting and should adapt. Don't try to keep doing the same thing over and over again as you did before, right? So be looking for your change points. Take a close look at your desires. Perhaps they are not appropriate. Hexagram 5 is called patience, and this is our solution I-Ching reading. A fisherman can cast the line, but still can only wait for the fish to bite. Your catch will come in its own good time. Does this sound about what we've always been hearing for the last 3-4 weeks with our solutions? Proceed cautiously but resolutely with whatever you are doing. The situation calls for consistency and perseverance. Waiting is an essential skill. Patience is a powerful force. Time is an ally for those with inner strength. To rush anything to force results stimulates resistance and causes setback. So do you see now the careful dice this week is that the inner warrior wants to come out and arg, and maybe anger, and it's motivating. Well, rushing into anything right now is really going to cause some problems, according to this. So don't rush into anything. Really think about what you're going to be doing, all right? Be content to practice patience. And patience doesn't imply do nothing. It's not a do nothing being type of week, but be patient. So now we put the full moon into the conversion chart. Excuse me. We have hexagram 51, gate 51 in the rave mandala of human design, and we get Pisces. So what is 51? The ability, it's the arousing, which is another warrior within. The ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. Line 2, remember this is the full moon, so the full moon is more withdrawal. The recognition of the mechanics of shock that indicates when withdrawal is the only logical action. The instinctive withdrawal when the power of the ego is threatened. Whew, this is some deep stuff. The downside risk this week is being too smart for one's own good and rejecting withdrawal in the vain belief that one can outsmart natural forces. The egoism is to reject withdrawal and face possible defeat. Okay? This is not just for the good guys, the good girls, right? This is also for the powers that be. They too should withdraw. And if they don't, that's very bad for them. Thumbs up, right? All right, let's get into the solution slide. And let's change to this so that we can zoom in. There's your warrior. All right. Arg. Maybe anger, maybe I wouldn't say probably not depression, probably overwhelm and anger are probably that can be the two most likely emotions this week. And so our overview for the influence is the more heated challenges expected with Mars T-square and an Aries full moon. Focus this week is on the warrior class of archetypes. Meanwhile, a beautiful grand Air Trine offers easy intellect, analysis, harmonization, and synthesis, being able to put it all together and see the big picture. Here's the solution slide. And we triangulated with the I-Ching, gate 5, patience, proceed cautiously, expect to wait. You remember that. And the rave said the arousing, the ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. There's going to be some shock. There's going to be some disorder. And then Pisces is very spiritual, compassionate, idealistic. And we're going to put all that together like this. Well, it looks like the CIRF solution is starting to sound like a broken record, even with the different hexagram, different gate, and different sidereal sign. We are given more caution flags about possible disorder, delays, and shocking events. According to the rave, the full moon affords us the arousing with an ability to respond to the disorder and shock, very apropos to the Aries influence. But temper that with the I-Ching that focuses on patience, caution, and perseverance. The Sidereal Pisces solution challenges us to see the spiritual growth opportunities in this hardship. So stay connected. That's the Pisces need. One of their primary needs is being connected, connecting others to others, networking. Stay connected to all that is, to the universe. Observe with transcendence. Use your psychic awareness. And above all, avoid escapism. An option to get extra credit this week is before verbalizing complaints, see what spiritual opportunity is available by engaging in it and improving that situation, right? So got to be present with a lot of us complain subconsciously, and this is a good indicator that something needs corrected. So pause the complaint, recognize that you're doing it, and see if you can see a spiritual opportunity, a spiritual advancement, or a spiritual value that can be improved on and committed to this week, instead of just complaining about it, like sort of indicating helplessness. And I know these world global problems seem beyond our capability to control, but there are things that we can do, especially in the spiritual realm. So look more for opportunities, spiritual opportunities, for what you're complaining about. All right. And I'm going to use this affirmation. It says, I channel my inner warrior towards helping humanity rise and transcend. I've got a little mix of the influence, and I'm going to channel that into more of the Pisces gifts and superpowers, right? Rising and transcending, and a little bit of Aquarius, humanity, concern for humanity. All right, that's a mouthful, and I think I've said all I wanted to say. Thanks for everybody's input. I tried to consolidate everything and find the medium. How did I do? How's volume? How is the filter? It's not on right now, so here it is. How is that? Is that better? For both sides. Some people wanted the dark, some people wanted the no filter. So I hope that's the happy medium. Can't please everybody, but I can take your opinions, and I don't get tired of your opinions. All right, everybody. Thank you. And let's kick ass this week, right? We got the energy to do it. That's for sure. All right. See you next week. Namaste.